Hi, everybody, and good evening here from Finland, where it's about 10 p.m. and it's 8 p.m. GMT. I'm glad you have been able to come along. This is the beginning of our Pisces full moon work. Last night we had the solar fire ritual meditation oratorio. It's all those things. And thank you for coming along on that meditation. And also on, I think on YouTube, on our Morya Federation YouTube channel, you can find that music if you would like to go there and participate in the meditation. And the full moon actually is, it's on the 2nd of March. And so this is Wednesday the 28th, so it'll be on Friday. And, well, actually, yeah, it'll be GMT at 12:51 a.m. and 14 seconds. So here in Finland, it'll be at 2:51, and we're actually starting the full moon work with Tuya, which is her exact moment full moon broadcast at 11:15 GMT PM the night before, and it will extend over the change of days. So I think you'll be able to see in the chat box various links that you will need and some handouts that will be useful to you along the line of Pisces. So you can gather those up if you have not received them already, but I think probably a lot of you have, in fact, received things in relation to Pisces. Well, it's an amazing sign, Pisces. Joffre, the artist, he's a Dutch artist. I guess he died about 20 years ago or so. He really had the Hermetic astrological spirit. Some of his illustrations really capture the esoteric aspect of the signs. Now, I'm not so sure about this one, but he certainly does look like Neptune, the brother of Jupiter. And there are a lot of Neptune people that have kind of the face that he has as well. Neptune is associated, we know, with the Buddhic plane, astral plane, and even the monadic plane. And sometimes it's a very, well, like the ocean, it's a very gentle kind of influence. And other times it remains as a great stirrer of storms, hurricanes, things of that nature. The sea that cannot be tamed, just like the emotional body. There are the calms in the emotional body, and then sometimes it gets all whipped up into something that just cannot be subdued. So Neptune is both of these things. He's holding the two fishes, and we do recognize what they are. They are the soul and the personality, and they are bound together. Well, at first, in the story of Jonah and the whale of great size, he swallows Jonah, and this is the way of thinking about the soul in incarnation being swallowed up by the elemental personality tendencies, and that goes on for millions of years. It's the getting free of that is really only at the end of the human evolutionary cycle. I mean, maybe, I don't know, it can take 20 million years or more to get out of that kind of captivity. But eventually, hard though it may seem, it looks like Jonah swallows the whale. And eventually, the soul becomes the dominating factor, and we see this in the relationship between the fishes. And some of us are in transition, I suppose, with at times the lower fish is dominant, and at times it is the soul that is dominant. By the way, if you want to see a wonderful Piscean film, there's something out now with fantastic acting. It's called The Shape of Water. It's a very unusual, almost bizarre film. But if you want to get the idea of what Pisces can mean, try to take that in. I'm sure it will win some awards for film. It's just beautiful acting and an amazing story. And you know, of course, Pisces does rule the film industry along with Neptune. So the whole idea of the many, many images that come up in the astral body has to do, and with imagination, it has to do with Pisces, but at the same time, it connects with the Buddhic plane, which in some ways is imageless, and the monadic plane from which it's possible to identify with and as everything. So our big task really is to make sure that our elemental nature, through the power of willing sacrifice, is captivated by the soul. Now, Pisces is a great sign of sacrifice, and I suppose it's the sign of all the saviors. You know, I'm sure that the Christ is most associated with this particular sign. That, you know, along with Libra, you know, he's the Prince of Peace, of course, but as a foundational sign, I think Pisces is that. Master KH2 says the Tibetan in one of his lesson sets, has a very strong Pisces along with Gemini. Well, there's the head of the cosmic Christ is Gemini, and Pisces is the savior. Then he gives an interesting horoscope, but he does not tell whose it is, and it's a Taurus and Pisces horoscope, and it looks to me very much like that of the, you know, the Prince Siddhartha or the Gautama, the Buddha. Really, you know, of course, I've often said it, but I think it is true that as Christ is to Jesus, so is the true Buddha to the vehicle he used, Gautama, the Prince Siddhartha. So that's really something to think about, because the Buddha had been already the head of the spiritual hierarchy for some, well, almost 2,500 years, when his appearance, I believe, through Gautama occurred. Anyway, that horoscope is a Taurus horoscope, and we're shown how strong is Taurus in relation to the Buddha and in relation to enlightenment in general, and its ascending sign is Pisces, there again along the world's savior line. This particular sign is very climactic. Not everybody ends their series of incarnations, thousands of them, in the sign Pisces. Many people become, let's just say, fourth degree initiates and are given liberation in the sign Aquarius. Aquarius can rule the fourth, the third, the second initiation, but most definitely the fourth initiation. But a few end up subservient to the shambolic will in the sign Pisces. It's a very tough path, and it's a path of great sacrifice and a very rapid path. So simply because the age of Pisces is ending, in a larger way, it is not ending, because it is the great sign of salvation, and when the Christ appears, he will be the Aquarian Christ, but behind him is this tremendous saviorship of the sign Pisces. Here is the banner. Now this is giving us the orthodox ruler of Pisces is Jupiter, and both the esoteric ruler and also the hierarchical ruler. Both of them are Pluto. And of course, there's a special ruler of Pisces, which the Tibetan said that the famous astrologer Alan Leo intuited this, and it's Neptune, and it works that way for all humanity. And in a certain way, I believe that Neptune is really sort of the highest of the rulers of Pisces, because it is the great synthesizing planet for our solar system, and probably for our solar system, I do believe, the final synthesizing planet. Maybe next solar system, it will be Uranus. But anyway, we have great opportunity here with Jupiter and the capacity to identify with all things. At the same time, we have the specter of death. which cuts us free from all kinds of false identifications. And when Neptune finally comes in, we have true and real identification. I leave the father's home. It is, let's say, it's the monadic plane. It's the plane from which our great pilgrimage descends. We descend via that pilgrimage, and that monadic plane is ruled by Jupiter, and it's ruled also by the planet Neptune. And then there comes a time of repentance when we leave behind all the things we have, all the forms we have identified with overly much, and turning back, we take as many with us as we can on the upward path. And that's the labors of Hercules. I think when Tuya gives the broadcast coming up in a day and a little more, she'll include some of those elements about the labors of Hercules and the red cattle of Geryon that are saved. You know, it's Mars being redeemed, and it's all of our lower elemental life being redeemed and lifted up into heaven. Okay, so those are a couple of things which I think are important. Now, let's see. I usually show now on the Makara website, and it's also on the, what is it? I think also on our Morya Federation website. Is that so, BL and Joe, that we have Francis's images and pictures? Yeah. Okay. So you can read about those on the Morya Federation website in greater detail, and probably on Makara there's something there as well. I'll just go through a little bit. These are the two images that Francis has created for us, and just maybe a little bit about this. Yeah, there's the human being in the chrysalis, and let's see, you know, what is said here. As he has, let's see, well, maybe there's another place where I can, yeah, chrysalis. In the first cycle of experience upon the wheel, the soul itself is in captivity to substance. Okay, we discussed that. It has come down into the prison house of matter and linked itself to form. It's all a question of consciousness, really, isn't it? You know, it's simply a question. Our freedom or our lack of freedom has to do with the scope and the depth of our consciousness. A disciple finds himself between the night of the form world and the dawn of the soul. Let's see if we have that. Through the crisis of death, death of desire, death of personality, and of all which holds him between the pairs of opposites of soul and personality. So these are the various crises of death. Pluto, shown in this image midway between the moon and the dawning light, has shifted the disciple's focus away from the world of form to a place of deep introspection, yet he still does not see the radiance of the higher realms. Let's see if I have that. Yeah, here's Pluto, and here's the dawning light, and he is in a deep introspective mood. He has not yet awakened to his higher possibilities, but this magician in the background, a kind of a lord of the first ray via Pluto, will release him from his internally aperceptual bondage. So let's see what is said here. As he has throughout the long ages of his existence, and will many times in the eons that lie before him, our Piscean native prepares for death. He retreats deep within himself to a place that stands between the night of the form world and the dawn which will follow. He is swayed and turned by both, and as he struggles against fear, the moon's troubled waters fill him with doubt. Form ever clings to the past, whilst the inner spark, you know, the spirit, Pluto, Aries, Shambhala, you know, Pluto is related to this freedom of the spirit, while the inner spark leaps towards its source. In the midst of his struggle, unseen and unheard, the Lord of Will, we saw an image of that Lord of Will, there he is in the background, and he looks it. Okay, spirals from the inner realms into his outer place. His presence fills our seeker with peace. In this moment of profound calm, the gateway into life more abundant. There's that Jupiter factor. Also, Neptune flashes across the disciple's inner vision, and he realizes that death, as he has learned to view it, is an illusion born of fear, and also of limited perception, may I add. He releases his grip on the past, and the form world loses its hold on him. He shifts his point of tension beyond the chrysalis, which now appears to him as a binding sheath, and following his Sutratma, the silver thread that has anchored him in his body passes through the narrow passageway. So the first ray is always going to bring liberation from the form, and we're told that Pluto never kills the consciousness. It always liberates the consciousness, even though it may temporarily kill the form to which the consciousness is bound. Okay, so there are many beautiful things to consider here, and I suggest you go to the Morya Federation website, and well, there's so much here. The first ray is the controller of the death drama in all kingdoms, a destruction of forms which brings about release of power and permits entrance into light through the gateway of death. Esoteric Psychology 1, page 64. And okay, we see all of these interesting things said about Pisces and said about Pluto, which is his major ruler at this point. It is the interplay of these dual potencies, the first and second ray, Jupiter and Pluto. Jupiter's second ray, Pluto is the first ray, which precipitates the process of transmutation and eventual escape through death. Really, in a way, in terms of the rays, the first and second rays are the major pairs of opposites, and they rule ray lines, which are very different from each other, one having more to do with the form, the 1357 line, and the other with the abstract essence found within the form. Okay, well, there's much to read, and I suggest that you do it. Gosh, I'm tempted to, the first ray releases into a higher consciousness. Now here we have the little rider and his fish, and we see the sun and the moon, and we see much geometry here. And this one is called the Eye of the Soul. Eye of the Soul. Upon the reversed wheel, the soul proceeds to detach itself from the personality and reattach itself in consciousness to the one who sent it forth. Now that is the monad. We are all of us extensions of the monad. We are the monad in different levels of incarnation. And as we begin to unveil our sheaths, we see ourselves in that way until we return to the monadic level, and the power of Pisces, the mantra of Pisces, suggests the monad. I leave the Father's home, the home of the monad, and make that huge pilgrimage, and turning back, I save. Now, let's see what else is here. Using a different set of metaphors, Eye of the Soul depicts the next stage of the Piscean process. Okay, a fish representing the vehicle of personality consciousness and its rider, the captive soul, or let's call it the soul in incarnation, have together navigated the waters of the lower quaternary for countless eons, millions of years really, inexorably drawn by his monad. The little one urges his Piscean vehicle to lift itself beyond its own watery element, and together they emerge from the dark water of substance. But in this rare atmosphere of soul contact, the fish, which is the personality self, occultly dies. So let's see who we have here occultly dying. And here Francis tells us that we should look for all of these little fishes here in the background who have been risen into heaven, and here are the eyes of the Christ supervising the entire process. There's really a lot to go into, which I can't do at the moment. Okay, so if you look closely, you'll see the sky filled with those fish who have gone before. This represents the transformative agency of Pluto. For as DK says, Pluto never destroys the consciousness aspect, only the form. Pluto is the liberator. So there's much to read, and it's of great value. Now, I'm not going to, well, as I say, this is the Christ's sign. Regardless of how he may operate through the Aquarian possibilities presented to him, this is the sign, I believe, with which he is most identified. So there are some important things to be said here about the great Lord and his roles in the coming Aquarian age. So here we have three great roles for the Christ, and they are described. You can find these in the reappearance of the Christ. The point within the triangle, the dispenser of the water of life, and the nourisher of the little ones. So, as dispenser of the water of life and as nourisher of the little ones, he enters upon his duties in the Aquarian age, whilst at the center of the triangle, he influences, enlightens, and produces right relations in the masses of men. In the coming era, he will therefore be known by these names. So, as I say, this is a wonderful sign which is ruled by the sixth ray of devotion, yes, but even more so by the great second ray of love, wisdom. And the Christ will, just the way the signs Aquarius and Pisces can look as if they are sort of overlapping, and there's a band connecting them in a way. So it is with the coming age and the coming of the Christ. He will bring his great Piscean achievements into the age of Aquarius, and he will add the Aquarian possibilities to that which he has as the world's savior already offered to humanity. Well, excuse me. Yeah, please do go to find these out and see what Francis has written about these things. There's a lot to study, and he's doing a great job, also with the Secret Doctrine now. Every month there is a Secret Doctrine study series that Francis offers as a webinar. So I recommend that you take that in if you possibly can. All right, I think we have reached the point at 22:22 here where we can begin to look at our meditation. Now, as I say, we're a little ahead of the full moon. We're still perhaps, let us say, in a day of aspiration. You know how it goes. 3 days before, we have a physical brain attitude of confidence, then an emotional attitude of aspiration, and then on the day before, we have the mental attitude of dedication. And then during the 12 hours preceding the full moon, and I would say 12 hours afterwards, we receive and hold the descending energies. And then we distribute them on the 3 days afterwards. We register what we have received, and we have that emotional sense of expectancy that something of a very positive nature can occur, and then we confirm the belief that indeed it has anchored itself and it has created a situation where the energies can actually affect humanity. Really, the masters follow maybe a whole month-long sequence related to these signs, from the time of the new moon to the full moon and then back to the new moon. That is not expected of us. Either a 7-day or a 5-day or a 3-day service is expected of us. And so we work along those lines just the way the disciples did for Master DK as he instructed them, his students on the periphery of his ashram. Okay, this is a very subtle sign, friends, a very subtle sign, and very much connected with the intuition. It's not the astrality that we're interested in with regard to Pisces. The imagination is very active and all that. So is the idealism, but we're interested in this Buddhic contact. And we're interested even in the possibility of the great saving power of the monad. The monad, each of us as monads, is a lord of ceaseless and persevering devotion. ceaseless and persevering devotion. That's what we are, essentially, in our monadic self. So it's good to remember that. Okay, so now we will begin. I'd really like to welcome you all. Thanks, for being here. And we've got, quite a few of us here tonight. Let's see if we can, in preparation for the actual full moon, if we can begin to really invoke the energies, receive them, build up the energies within us, and come closer and closer into the heart of the energies which are now available. Okay. So we begin just with a little silence as we tune in on each other, wherever we may be in the world. We're all in one field of consciousness. And we are like one organism working together as a bridge to bring the available energies closer into human consciousness so that humanity, even if it doesn't, understand all of the esoteric dynamics, can avail itself of these energies. So it's important that we not be trapped by our usual perceptions. The personality consciousness is with us so much, but we need to withdraw. We, the consciousness in incarnation, we, the soul in incarnation, need to pull back from our usual perceptions. We pull back from the senses of the physical kind. We pull back from the astral images and the currents of attraction and repulsion. We pull back from those. We have them, we use them, but we're disidentifying from them, and we pull back from the many, many concrete thoughts that run through our mind and the usual mental processes. We are the soul in incarnation. We are the observer of all these vehicles. And we allow them to sort of fade away in our consideration for the moment. And we try to recognize ourselves as a detached unit of consciousness, and as this ordinary field fades out, something else fades in, a field of light, soul light, a field of soul love and unity, and the field actually of sacrificial will, spiritual power coming through something that seems often very much its opposite, coming through sacrificial will. So it's as if we're in a different field now, regardless of what your eyes tell you or your feeling nature or thoughts. We're merging into a deep sense of the soul on its own plane, the higher mental plane from one perspective, and we get the sense of the group soul. All of us really, not only as soul-infusing personalities, yes, but also it's as if we're in the causal body. It's as if we're in the egoic lotus, all of us, very different than our normal personality identifications, and we're merging with each other. We're magnetically related to each other on this higher mental plane. We try to look out at the world from that perspective. The soul perspective, it's necessary for harmlessness. We have to be living consciously as a soul to achieve harmlessness. It's one of the major possibilities in relation to Pisces. And we think about other people in the world, the spiritually minded people, some of whom are members of the new group of world servers, that subjectively united group that is so related to hierarchy. We think about the men and women of goodwill. We think about them all as awakening souls. And we connect with them on the soul level. All the servers like brighter points of light in different countries, and the many more men and women of goodwill, not yet knowing perhaps that they are tending towards spiritual occultism, but animated by goodwill. And we're connected through the heart and soul and through the illumined mind, the mind becoming illumined with all of these people of good intention and active service. One very large group becoming larger all the time, and necessarily so. And then we carry it a little further, because really there's not one human being who is not a soul. In all the millions and really billions of people, they are the soul. And together, if we can possibly sense it, there is the one soul of humanity with this Lord of a kingdom working through it, a great being for whom humanity is the vehicle, just the way the animal kingdom has its Lord and the plant kingdom and so forth. There's a great being in whom all these souls are one. And as the Tibetan tells us in a marvelous little second-ray mantra, naught is but me. There is no my soul or thy soul, ultimately, but naught is but me. So one soul of humanity, if we can grasp it, in the body, out of the body, it doesn't make any difference. All those billions somehow really united on the plane of the higher mind, and some of them on the Buddhic plane, united that way if they've gone a little further. So this meditation is done, as it were, with the entirety of humanity in mind. The group has to toil in Pisces, and the mark of the Savior has to appear above the aura of the group, as he tells us in one of the later rules in the rays and initiations. So all the work we're doing here really is a gathering of energy, a radiation of energy for the welfare of the world, the welfare of humanity. Finally, because Pisces can be so empathic, the welfare of all the kingdoms, every sentient being. We're all working a little bit, I would say, and increasingly so at building the Rainbow Bridge. The foundation of that bridge, in a way, is at the mental unit, at the top of the lower mental plane. And energy has to be brought into that area and then projected, intensified, so that it creates a bridge. It touches higher levels of vibration, which can then descend via this bridge of light which we are creating. So it's as if we draw up this energy from our vital nature in the personality, imaginatively into the area of the mental unit. You know how it goes. Here's the mental unit, right there in the diagram that we draw up from below. The energies of the etheric physical. And we, as if, see the emotional nature aligned with the Buddhic plane, so that the energy of intuition touches the refined Buddhic vehicle, and the mental unit is in that stream, receiving the impression of the plan, which is known in the triad, known in the Buddhic vehicle. But there's more, because all the petals of the egoic lotus have their quality, and they have to offer that quality to the point of projection at the mental unit. So we imagine that from the egoic lotus we draw down those energies into the vicinity of the mental unit. A soul-enriching experience for the point of projection. And then the jewel in the lotus itself, the center of will, and really the projection of the monad itself on the higher mental plane. We draw down that will imaginatively, until we have created a pool of energies in the vicinity of the mental unit. A pool of energies impressed by the intuition, impressed by the divine plan, impressed by the soul energies. It's a point of tension, and we're going to use it to express and project into, imaginatively at least, into the triad. We never can really reach the highest levels of the triad because they are reserved for those whose degree is higher than that of master, even higher, Chohan's really. But we'll project in that direction, and we'll project towards the monad, and we'll try to establish that inner ridge of light down which the wisdom, the power, the mentality of the triad, and the beingness of the monad can make an impression upon us. So many energies that the masters themselves are working on, but at least a little bit of it can come into our consciousness. So we will imagine the vivid rainbow bridge of all the 7 colors of the rainbow rising from that concentration of energies on the 4th subplane of the mental plane. Vivid 7-colored bridge, but with 2 energies more vivid than all the others, our soul ray color and our personality ray color, more vivid, if you know them. And these colors, as we see, these are the colors of the different rays, but most importantly, we're going to visualize the indigo color for all of us as a kind of second ray process bridging. And we're going to use the word of power as we project. I see the greatest light. So just imagine the bridge reaching into the higher strata of your nature. There's really no up or down, all of that, but through these imaginative methods, we can come into rapport with higher energies. So from that point of projection on the top of the lower mental plane, the bridge seems to rise, organizing those energies, reaching high into the triad, and especially the indigo color will be pronounced, and we're going to sound the Om outwardly, as inwardly we say to ourselves, I see the greatest light, and hopefully this will open up for the group the possibility of higher impression. So I'm going to use one of the notes sometimes used for the second ray, the note G, a blue note really, connecting with our blue logos and the blue of our blue-green planet and its second ray soul. So outwardly the Om, inwardly we say to ourselves, I see the greatest light. And down this bridge can come the answer from the higher levels, and wisdom and will and intelligence can impress from the monad through the triad, the group mind, the group personality, at this time of available energies leading to the full moon. Now, in the triad, the masters do work. They are triadal beings. They have not yet mastered the triadal levels. They have mastered the lower 18 subplanes and even the lower 21 subplanes. They no longer have the causal body, but have some kind of mental apparatus there built around the monastic permanent atom. But we're going to declare our solidarity with them, our cooperation with them. This is our time to be especially close to the Great White Lodge of our planet, and do that in a group form. As we sustain and hold this rainbow bridge projection that we have created, going, as it were, apparently all the way into the monad, into the deep inner recesses of our nature, at least imaginatively so. So we're going to declare our solidarity, our cooperation with the great ones through these salutations, which in fact this kind of activity was something that Master DK offered in some of his meditations, which are, they're not widely spread about. They're not in the Dyna books, but they do exist. The salutations to the masters. So we adopt an attitude of gratitude. We realize where we might be at a very low level without the work of the spiritual hierarchy and without the work of the solar angels. DK once said that we'd be lower than the lowest form of human being on the planet now. That's how important the solar angelic and hierarchical work has been for the raising of humanity, the saving of humanity. So in the heart is gratitude. And we offer with the Om the various forms of salutation. Salutations to the Christ, the Master of all masters, the teacher alike of angels and of men. Salutations to the triangle of masters with whom at this time we work most closely, the masters M, KH, and DK. And now individually. Salutations to the Master Morya, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations. Salutations to the Master K.H. Kutumi, whose ashram is the most responsible at this time in preparing for the reappearance of the Christ, and who will be the Christ of the coming age of Capricorn, we are told. Salutations to the Master DK, Chualkul, who has given us the blue books and so much of the work of Blavatsky and the third installment to come, starting in another 7 years or so. And he is the one training aspirants, as we all are, for initiation. And with these salutations, it is as if we come into the focused presence of these great spirits who are more than usually attentive to spiritual approach at this time. Now, the next. Salutations to your own master, as you conceive him to be or know him to be. And finally, salutations to the entire spiritual hierarchy of our planet. So we've declared our solidarity with the members of hierarchy as their students and pupils and co-workers in the lower spheres. But now as a group, we raise our thought to the center where the will of God is known, Shambhala. However we wish to visualize this, somehow realizing that even masters of the 5th degree cannot simply enter Shambhala. It takes Chohanship, the 6th degree, to truly enter the precincts where the Lord of the world holds sway. But still, as a group, and with deepest reverence and in all humility, we attempt, identified together as a group soul, to attune to the presence of Sanat Kumara, the great embodiment of the purpose of our planet. Obviously, we cannot do this fully in any sense, even the masters cannot, but we raise our group consciousness to this great being who is an extension of the planetary logos, an emanation, we might say, and we seek to be in some small stream of that great presence. And if even a little of the radiation of the King of Shambhala can touch us as a group, we will know more of the divine plan and some slight intimation of the divine purpose of our planet may make its impression upon the group aura. And inwardly and silently, we sound a long Om, internal Om, imagining the group receiving some small portion of this amazing energy. Long, inner, silent Om. We have to realize that Pisces is a very shambolic sign. It rules the monadic plane in one respect, which is one of the gates to Shambhala. So there may not be so many opportunities as a group to approach some radiation of Shambhala. Even the masters have to be extremely careful and do this only in group formation and at certain times. So we have to be really humble about this. But if we can be impressed by a little bit of the divine plan as it affects us individually and in our groups, and by the more remote divine purpose, then something of a more subtle nature in our spiritual life will begin to appear. So these are the energies coming down now, coming through now. It's as if all of us are concentrated at an intense point of light, of love, and of spiritual sacrificial will. It's as if our personalities are out of the picture now, and we as an inner being were gathered together at a point where these three factors are paramount: light, love, and spiritual sacrificial will as power. And we hover above, as it were, the golden pathway. The golden pathway leading straight into the heart of the indigo sun, which we've used as the symbol of how to approach the inner worlds and the consciousness of the great ones. And that pathway shortens and shortens, and we ride with it and are absorbed into the indigo sun. We imagine that. Completely imbued by the color indigo, the great synthetic color of our solar system and even of our planet at this time. And here we imaginatively meet the consciousness of Master DK, who is the great expert, we are told, the most learned of all the masters in the areas of the rays, the astrological factors, planets, signs, constellations, the creative hierarchies, all these details of the inner working of the many energies. We meet him as a group, imaginatively at least, and try to offer ourselves as willing outposts of his consciousness as we go deeper and deeper to meet the descending energies of the planet's rays, the light, the solar energies, the constellational energies, all these things supported by his understanding of these matters. So let us then, we will be raising our consciousness to the three rulers of the constellation Pisces. They're always present, of course, but more intense at this time. Jupiter, you can picture that great, largest of all the planets, the one most like our own solar logos. The exoteric ruler, Jupiter, will be conveying beneficence, inclusiveness, selfless generosity, the enlargement of consciousness, the eradication of boundaries in this inclusive attitude. And we'll be encountering the energies of that remote planet, Pluto, which cleans out the personality, purging it, throwing out those obstacles to soul infusion, and still higher is its work as the hierarchical ruler, conveying the power to negate and even destroy any personality tendency that acts as an inhibition to soul expression. The annihilator of illusion and the one who cuts the thread which binds the two opposing lives together. Those beautiful photographs we've seen of Pluto, amazing. A very esoteric planet, though still a non-sacred planet. And finally, that special ruler for all of humanity. It's Neptune, conveying transcendent compassion and the power to identify with all aspects of the soul through all aspects of matter, the anima mundi, the soul of the world. This power will take us to the Buddhic plane one day, to the monadic plane at a still later time, and eventually to the cosmic astral plane, where our great journeys will begin. Master DK says, what shall we find there? Who knows? I have not been there, he says. So it lies far ahead. So these are the planets we will encounter and try to get some impression, some use of these energies. First, Jupiter. Visualize it. Faith, hope, charity, benevolence, selfless service. The social planet seeing to the welfare of so many when it's rightly used. It's a great-hearted planet. It rules the heart center of disciples. Jupiter. It is benevolent, it is beneficent, and it overflows the lesser and petty, selfish states of consciousness. And it absorbs human consciousness into the great ocean of reality, the ocean of light, the ocean of theosophy, the ocean of divine wisdom. We need this in our groups. We need it individually. And so we imagine the power of Jupiter carrying the second ray, some of the seventh ray as well, the ceremonial aspect, flowing into our group and groups, flowing in. We absorb these qualities of enlargement as Jupiter enlarges our egoic lotus, our causal body, makes it possible to include more and more beyond our narrow horizon, more and more. And we'll imagine this beneficence flowing into our groups, into ourselves individually, and we appropriate this present Jupiterian energy. We appropriate it at this time. Changes our relationships with each other. They become mutually supportive. We become benevolent, helpful, cooperative, looking for the welfare of others. Let's watch this blue energy, royal blue sometimes, flow into our group and groups on the sound of the Om. But now, this planet of growth has to give way to Pluto, very different energy, principally on the first ray at this time, though other energies are also involved. And this is the purifying energy, purging, casting out the impediments. We all have them. We've got to get rid of them. They're in the way, and Pluto will eject them. So we'll use a different note. We'll use the note C sharp or D flat, visualizing this dark red, even black energy, purifying us, casting out what we don't need, what we don't want, what stands in the way. What needs to go? Under the power of Pluto, it can go. But there's more to Pluto from the hierarchical aspect, because it acts as the agent for the monad. And it cuts away everything that binds the soul to the perception of time and space. It destroys illusion, releasing us into eternity, timelessness, spacelessness, which is non-locality. It releases us into this higher type of understanding, devoid of illusion and certainly devoid of glamour. So the higher force of Pluto We imagine this coming into our individual lives, into our groups. Again, the same note. Taken together, Jupiter and Pluto plus Neptune can destroy the rings past not, which are holding our consciousness in bondage. And finally, we will use Neptune, the transcendent Neptune, the transcendental planet, ruling Pisces for humanity as a whole, removing all egoistic barriers and boundaries between human beings such that the oneness of humanity, its one consciousness, its one soul, its one spirit, are experientially realized through the power of identification, something at which the great Lord, the Christ, was an expert, is an expert. The barriers are broken down, they're dissolved away, and everything and everyone are included. And how much indeed do we need these in our groups and in our individual life, raising us above all the usual into the transcendental state. So I'll use a special note here. I'll use the A flat, G sharp, and we'll sound the Om, absorbing the special power of Neptune. If we cultivate this correctly, the power of identification, something lying even beyond the normal initiations, will increasingly be ours. So there we have the great inclusive Jupiter, the destroyer, Pluto, destroying our illusions, our glamours and illusions, cleaning the entire personality, and great transcendental Neptune at this time, carrying its sixth ray of high devotion and its second ray monad. Boundless love, boundless. And upon all this, our solar logos shines, our great being, whose personality ray is the second, whose soul ray is the second. At least in this solar system, the personality ray will be the second, and whose monad, some combination of the fourth and second, eventually. Such a great heart center, that heart pervades us all. Imagine the sun, the vehicle of the Solar Logos. Our God is a consuming fire, the fire of love. And we all, as monads, we are that which finds its home within the sun, we are told, as monads. Love wisdom pervading all lives in our solar system, whatever their ray may be. Solar love wisdom pervading whatever our ray may be. So we'll use a second ray note again for the great Solar Logos and witness the pervading through imagination of all our planet and the other planets. It's as if we are all rays of the sun and must bring that quality forward. But we rise further, although it's along the heart line, really. Pisces, as a constellation, is one of the petals in the heart, in the head center of the great supercosmic logos. We call it, because we do not know, we call it the one about whom naught may be said. And we rise towards that constellation in our thought. Its peculiar light, as it were, shines upon us, very beautifully described by the Tibetan here. Pisces, the light of the world. This is the light revealing the light of life itself. It ends forever the darkness of matter. The hidden light of Cancer is liberated in Pisces, the light of the world. And as we visualize this constellation, we feel its love wisdom, we feel its devotion, and the planets that are connected there, Jupiter, Pluto, Neptune. We feel the second ray, the sixth ray, the first ray. Our sun is very much, because of its second ray nature and its heart center placement within a cosmic logos, our sun is very much along the line that Pisces can penetrate. The heart, you know, is the great savior, and we are a heart in a cosmic logos. These are the big cosmic matters, but they do trickle down to us and tell us something about the energies now available, redeeming energies, love energies, liberating energies, liberating us into love. First ray, liberation into. Second ray, love, wisdom, the pervasive wisdom of Pisces, he tells us. So now, visualizing that constellation, we're going to have some moments of silence as we deal with this beautiful mantra with which we can identify, I leave the Father's home, and turning back, I save. I leave the Father's home, and turning back, I save. We will have some pondering on that, and over the next day and leading up to the full moon and afterwards, what is our saving potential? Like Christ, if we would follow him or imitate him, as Thomas à Kempis suggested in his imitation of the Christ, and Morya confirmed it. Imitate the Christ, he said. What is our saving potential? As individuals, in our groups, I leave the Father's home, and turning back, I save. I leave the Father's home, and turning back, I save. What does it really mean to save? The red cattle of Geryon, they were lifted in a large chalice. We'll have more of that when we do our actual exact moment full moon. Redemption, salvation, but understood in a truly occult, esoteric sense, not the fanciful interpretations that indicate emotional belief as sufficient. It's something more, much more, and it requires great psychology, great skill in action. Christ is the divine psychologist. He is the great teacher. He is the savior of our present humanity. And what can we do to help? We'll be pondering these things, pondering over the next day, and as we move to the actual full moon moment, we'll be pondering. So from that great supercosmic logos, unfathomable, but maybe the Pleiades cluster is its head center, the thousand-petaled lotus, that circle of the zodiac is the heart and the head. And from Pisces comes an energy which descends probably through Orion with its 7 great first magnitude stars and into the system of the cosmic logos where our sun is the heart, our solar logos is the heart, the love wisdom energy, the saving energy descends, and from our solar logos to Jupiter ruling the heart center of all disciples, and Pluto, the base of the spine center, and Neptune, much associated with the heart and the head of all of us, and affecting our monad, our real self, which resides in Shambhala. And through our souls, through Shambhala, through hierarchy, and through our soul nature, and into, for us, the heart and the head, and the heart center, and even our solar plexus, and back up to the heart center, and the heart and the head, through which the monad can express. These great energies descend, and we are open to them. We stand in cooperation with them. We work with the hierarchy to express and radiate these wonderful energies to whomever we can contact, known or unknown to us. We radiate them subtly so they can reach many. And in our local environment, so they can reach those with whom we have something more tangible to do. From the highest to the lowest, this great love wisdom energy is penetrating. And what it means to save is making itself more known to us. And as we look out on our planet, there are so many areas of distress. We deal with this, in our Souls of Nations meditations. There are threats of war. There are people being kidnapped. There are mass shootings by terribly disturbed individuals. There's economic injustice. There's bombing. There's wrong human relations all over. Select something where you as an individual would like to direct this healing, saving energy of Pisces. Select an area, maybe the entire planet perhaps, with the Christ at the center of it all. And see that energy flowing in, redeeming, healing, correcting, restoring right human relations. And literally, and over time, saving humanity and our world. We'll sound 3 ohms as we watch the healing effect in the light of Pisces, the light of the world, flowing in and correcting, redeeming, saving. So we hold our point of tension over the next day and towards the moment of the full moon, 12:51 and 14 seconds at Greenwich Mean Time, Universal Time. Whatever that may mean for you, that Greenwich Mean Time never changes, so you just figure out where it is in relation to your time zone, and whether you are on summertime now or simply standard time. It can only be one or the other. Let's let the Piscean energy build up, until at the moment of the full moon, the door opens and we can receive and distribute as has not been possible at other times. And so we will close our meditation with the sounding of the great invocation. Tomorrow morning, 5 a.m., reappearance of the Christ meditation in our Ask program. And you will find it fits very well, I think. Christ and the Piscean energy. Okay. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, friends. Let's keep these thoughts in our mind, and if you are able, please join us at 11:15 GMT PM on the 1st for the Pisces exact time full moon meditation broadcast. It's a broadcast, and you probably received your link. We can always use the Ask Comprehensive link, but there's a special link for this as well, and it's in the boxes here if you haven't copied them down. So thank you, and let's really make this full moon count for some deeper approach to reality and usefulness to the hierarchy and the Christ. Thank you for being here, and we'll See you before long. Tomorrow morning, maybe, for the reappearance of the Christ meditation. Bye-bye.